land, but they are ruthless, hungry and in power again.
What the fuck is up, gamers? Welcome to another fresh edition, coming at you super new, coming at you. I forget how we normally start this podcast because it's been a month since I introed it, but it's me. It's Henry Kissinger's Pokemon Going to Die, Not a Threat.
It's just a fact, folks.
I'm Sarah, aka Blow Kennedy the Third.
I'm gonna steal a nickname from John from the chat, and I'm Matt, aka Felonious Monk. It's a really good one to me.
It is.
Here's the full disclosure for the chat. I've basically just been like going to work, coming home, going to sleep, listening to a Harry Potter podcast, getting up, going to work, going to sleep, listening to a Harry Potter podcast, more or less on and off straight for the whole month. And today, I woke up, did the dishes, and then fell asleep on my cat until 10 minutes before our scheduled recording time.
Large fat Nanu is the perfect pillow.
He is the perfect pillow. He was like he was around my head like he was a hat. I was very comfy. And then Steph came into the room and said, "Oh, it's 1:50 right now." And I'm like, "Oh, guess I should get up." So that's roughly the energy that I am intending to bring to the pod today, is that of a man asleep.
We stan a sleepy man.
Yeah, so I won't have my first or second eye open, but I'm hoping to open at least my third eye today.
Yeah, see some greens, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones. So sure is a lot of shit happening, huh? Where are we beginning today? God,
I don't know. I guess I can start with the one that I've got, I guess we can start with the one. Well, how you been, Matt?
You know what? I've been of the feeling that, I've been mostly fine reading about all the shit that's happening, because I am a person on mood stabilizers that happen to work pretty well for me. So, I don't feel, very doomy at any point.
The glue is holding together.
The glue is holding everything together. So, I've been, keeping up with the news. But I think I've just reached a point of, a general numbness that's probably not good.
No, it's not. I've been in a very similar spot, and it's not good.
I just saw a poll of, first of all, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to get political on Facebook because, that's always a great idea.
You gotta do that every once in a while to prune out the racists on your
exactly.
family.
So I posted the Ontario polling for the provincial parties that was showing that the Liberals were, steadily gaining the Conservatives. I'm like, Ontarians have a memory of goldfish and are also stupid. I got a lot of anger for that one. I saw another poll today. The Liberals are back down again, but, the Conservatives are approaching, 50% voting intention, which makes no sense to me because they fucking suck.
Listen, it's that one tweet. Everyone's looking in the mirror and saying to themselves, we gotta get more racist to fix all our problems.
Really, truly.
Not even turning back to the crowd like The Price is Right, just cranking that racism dial all the way up.
Exactly. And we're about to face like everywhere in the United States as well, a looming eviction crisis, especially in Toronto, which has the Toronto and the Toronto area holds roughly half the population of the whole province. Probably a little more than that if you start considering areas like where I am. It's a lot of the population, and rent is already unaffordable, and a lot of people aren't working. I'm working because I work at a gym, those essential things that should be open when we're in a respiratory pandemic.
Listen, if people can't get their gains done, if they can't lift their... I'm making fun, but also I am a person who was, working out semi-regularly before this pandemic, and now I just, do Ring Fit occasionally.
Oh, man, but, talking to some of the members, you can really tell that genuinely working out is one of the only things emotionally holding them together as people.
Yeah.
And, I'm not gonna say that is a completely unrealistic thing, because...
Listen, the only thing holding me together right now is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2.
Yeah, we'll start with Lightbringers today. We just bookend the whole podcast with them. But no, I totally get it. The only thing that gets me through, the fact that we live in a completely wildly unjust society at which people are suffering all the time and all we can get from governments is platitudes, or just straight up like vilifying the things people are doing because of what they feel the government isn't doing. Like, we'll get to it like right after your story, which I think is probably the best place to start, because it's the one local thing we've got today, local to one of the hosts.
it's local, but it's also like become like a nation. It's
it's
its way to
flashpointed, just
becoming a
like
nation.
George Floyd stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of condemning the riots from the Democrats, and it's like, what are you, the Democrats, actually offering in this situation?
They've managed. Trump has just gotten them on the defensive. Trump is saying the loony lefts are saying riots are good, and the Democrats are saying no, we actually think riots are bad and poopy.
Right.
And we do not like. We only like protests when it's people standing in a circle, holding signs and holding hands, but not holding hands because of Corona.
Right. Ugh. I just saw. I saw that the right wing grifters are finally starting to move into Rochester now.
Yeah.
Like, because I saw an Ian Miles Chong tweet from yesterday where it's like, rioters broke into this people's house and are on their roof for protest, and it's like, no, those are the people who live in the house who are on their roof to support the marchers who are going by their house.
Mm-hmm.
Which was like very clear by the person who posted the video, and was like, it was most of the comments, so people had thoroughly covered it at this point. So I go to report the tweet, because, like, obviously this is not something that should stay up and get spread without the proper commentary on it, because, like, people aren't generally reading the comments on tweets, and also the default share on Twitter, like when you're sharing a Twitter link to someone who's not explicitly using the Twitter app, is one that, like, truncates the replies and follows it with related tweets instead.
Yep.
Which has always been something that bothered me, but I really just kind of realized like how bad it is for something where the comments are something explicitly debunking the post.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, anyway, I went to report the tweet and I looked through all the different report options, and wouldn't you know it, there's not a single option for reporting a tweet for blatant misinformation. It's just not a thing you can do.
Wasn't that a thing you could do for a time?
I think there might be in the States, you can report a tweet specifically for misinformation related to voting, but it is not an option for me.
Right, only for voting.
Only for voting. The only place that fraud exists, voting.
I mean, that's definitely a double-edged sword, because the part about being able to report a tweet for misinformation, because it would slap that little tag on everything. Remember when they were like just automatically slapping that tag on like posts about COVID-19 and 5G and everything. So there would be a double-edged sword, because we would see that misinformation tag applied there, but we would also see a misinformation tag applied to tweets such as Shrek is real and he's stuck in my penis.
Yeah, misinformation tag applied to the Jabuki tweet that's like, there's no way Shrek is circumcised.
Oh, God. He's not circumcised. He doesn't clean it either.
No, absolutely not. Like, you know how in the first movie there's that scene where he pulls the wax out of his ear to make the candles?
Yeah.
Well, he has a third candle on his table, and we know where he's getting that cheese.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah, we only say good things on this podcast. Anyway, Rochester.
Rochester has become the latest flashpoint for Black Lives Matter protests, I guess, like on a global scale. Like, I don't know if it will be approaching the size of Kenosha or help me out. George Floyd was in
Minnesota.
Thank you, God. I don't know if it will reach those heights, but it's definitely getting a lot of movement. There were like 5,000 people out marching in the streets last night in Rochester, and this is all in the wake of the death of a man named Daniel Prude. Daniel Prude was a Chicago citizen who was visiting his brother, I don't remember his brother's name off the top of my head. He was visiting his brother in Rochester back in late March. And he, I don't exactly know the details of this mental health crisis that he had, but he did have one. And he was actually taken in by the local hospital, the Strong Memorial Hospital. And they held him for like an hour or two and then just discharged him onto the street, like completely unsafely. And it's really fucked up that they did this, and they're not really getting talked about very much. Like, don't get me wrong, the cops and the mayor definitely did a large share of what's going wrong here. But the fact that the mental health part of the Strong Memorial Hospital just let him go is like absolutely wild. And
well, there definitely needs to be a conversation on the fact that there's like the as part of the defund police calls, people are saying, like, replace them with mental health workers, replace them with social workers. A lot of the same biases and racism exists in these mental health workers and social workers.
Yeah.
Like, it's basically like, yeah, but that's not the whole thing we need done. I mean, the long and short of it is it was basically just like, we need the people who are handling this to not have guns, which I guess is still accomplished if you're sending a racist person who does not have a gun, at least, to help people.
And I'm going to layer in a personal anecdote here. I have been held in the, I can't remember what the term for it is, but like the overnight,
like the ward?
Health.
Like the mental health ward?
Yeah, basically the mental health ward. And it's pretty effectively quarantined from the rest of the hospital, like just by design.
Does it have like its own entrance and everything?
It's not its own entrance, but the only way to get there is via an elevator, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, there's a staircase also, obviously, but it's like, I think that staircase only serves that area of the hospital. You have to go back to the hub to get anywhere else. So I've seen a lot of people throwing around the excuse that, oh yeah, coronavirus, the hospital was in the throes of coronavirus, they couldn't pay attention to him, and like, even if that wing of the hospital was not effectively quarantined, that would still be bullshit, but, I'm just putting that out there.
Right. I mean, well, like, I feel like people who say things like that don't understand how much hospitals are properly prepared to deal with infectious diseases in the first place. Mm-hmm. At least in North America, like the way that hospitals are designed is very much to keep different types of sick people apart from each other and not in like open spaces where they're causing infections.
Yeah, there were entire floors devoted to COVID. I think there's still like one or two. I don't even...
Well, like I had to go to I didn't have to, but like I got like I got a COVID test just as like a precaution because I'd been back at work for a month. Mm-hmm. Sidebar: the COVID test sucks so bad, dude. They like shove a Q-tip like a foot up your nose, basically, is what it felt like, and then they scrape it around in there for 10 seconds.
I've always wanted to get my nasal cavity fucked.
Yeah, that's basically it, eh?
Yeah.
By like a probe.
But okay, so I'm super far off topic here. So, the hospital let him go, and the police were alerted to, like, Daniel Prude's brother called 911 and was like, hey, my brother's having a mental health crisis, I need some help, and the cops, went to him, they found him sitting in the street naked, they put a spit bag over his head because of COVID fears, I guess.
Right.
And then they killed him by restricting his airways with in a way similar to the way that George Floyd was killed.
God, and this was like March, right?
This was late March. This was when George Floyd was like late May. So
something like that.
This was a good 2-ish months before the flashpoint in Minnesota.
So it's like they were definitely just kind of sitting on this case. Mm-hmm. And then I assume after George Floyd happened, they just buried it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, this cannot get to anyone anywhere.
Yeah. So what was claimed was that by the mayor, I went to a vigil for Daniel Prude on Thursday night, and the mayor showed up, and what she told everyone was that back in March, it was brought to her as a man dying via overdose because there was PCP in his system. Right. And that's how it was reported to her by the chief of police, and who is, Chief of Police Laurent Singletary, just dropping names where I can.
Of course, as one does, as one should.
And she claims that she didn't know about the fact that it was actually a death at the hands of the police and not just death by overdose until August 4th of this year, which is still about an entire calendar month before it came out. Now, she claims that the Attorney General, or her legal advisors instructed her not to speak on this matter because it could gum up something with the Attorney General doing its investigation. But the Attorney General has, explicitly gone on the record, right, a day or two ago and said, yeah, no, we didn't tell you guys not to investigate this whatsoever. So even if you take Mayor Lovely Warren at face value, that she didn't know about this until August, which I kind of doubt, if I'm being honest, but I've got no way to prove that.
Right.
Even if you take her at her word that she didn't know this, that she didn't see this footage until then, it's still bullshit that she did not publicize this until until her hand was forced by the family suing and the body cam footage becoming public.
Right. It's so, this happening during a mental health check just reminds me of, it was a Toronto story from earlier in the year or late last year, I can't remember, Regis Porquette. So what happened with her was she was at her apartment and her sister called a mental health wellness check on her. The cops showed up and then she was dead after falling off the balcony.
I remember that.
There's like a missing thing in there. And the cops claim absolutely no culpability for this, and they were exonerated in either provincial or federal court for this. But it's like, if you're showing up there, you're responsible. Because even if their story is 100% true, and they were like at the door of the apartment, and she ran out of the apartment, went onto the balcony, and tried to sidle over to the next apartment to get out, even if that is 100% true, and they weren't like, being physically aggressive, chasing her around the apartment, anything like that would cause her to get in this situation. If you are responding to a mental health call, it should be implied that their safety is implied.
Yeah.
Like that should be a whole part of it. And the fact that people can turn up dead, even in cases like in Rochester, where it's incredibly obvious that the police are the cause of death directly, and get off relatively scot-free. Like, I mean, these guys were fired, right? That was what recently happened?
Nah, not fired. They have been suspended with pay as of recording.
Oh, classic. Of course it's with fucking pay.
Yep. Lovely Warren. And I should specify here that this is, we're not going to change anything through electoral politics. I should specify this because Mayor Lovely, our mayor and our police chief are both black Democrats.
Right.
And this still happened here. This still kind of cover up, this kind of hushing of this death of a black man was still allowed in their city. And the thing that really gets, so much of this makes me so fucking mad. One particular thing is that when back when George Floyd happened, this was around the time that Rochester was voting on its city budget for the year, and there were calls to not give the Rochester Police Department $16 fucking million. And Mayor Lovely Warren went on record and said, "This is Rochester. This kind of stuff doesn't happen here. The RPD is not the Minneapolis PD." And et cetera, et cetera. And she's like she's been saying this does not happen here. This is Rochester. But it turns out it fucking does happen here, and she was just lying through her goddamn teeth.
How many people are in Rochester?
We are like the third most populous city. It's the third most popular. I can't say we anymore because I live slightly out of Rochester now, but it's the third most populous city in New York. About 200,000.
Okay. Well, fucked up that, like, the third most populous city is 200,000 when, like, New York is the first.
Yeah.
It's very large. Yeah, no, it's fucked. So now there are protests and riots in solidarity with the deceased and to get justice to actually happen. And It has resulted so far in suspensions. And that's about it.
The suspensions were like a knee-jerk response, even.
Right, exactly.
I don't know if there was a there was just like they did the suspension in order to like quell any kind of
to placate.
This is like they were like, we're gonna suspend these guys. This is enough for you guys, right? We're not gonna do that. And then everyone was like, fuck no. At the vigil, Mayor Warren showed up for a Q&A. Well, actually, the police chief showed up for a Q&A, as well as the head of the I think it was like the oversight board or something, who is also a black Democrat.
Oh, we love police oversight boards, don't we?
Yeah.
They're all just ex-cops who are only accountable to cops.
Yep. He got up on the mic and was like, listen, I hear you that we need to do changes to the policing, but also if there is a mental health emergency and I don't want to send a mental health professional out there without police. And then he also said all lives matter because he literally said all lives matter because the mental health professional could be in danger at the hands of this mentally ill person.
Which is so fucked because, like, mental health professionals do face a lot of violence, and they deal with it without killing the patients, because if they kill the patients, they don't get to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
Kind of funny how that works, huh?
It's that Chris Rock bit. It's like we can't, there are some jobs where you just can't have a few bad apples. Like you can't have a few bad apples of pilots.
Oh my god. Yeah. You really can't.
When I went to the vigil, the guy on the board, the oversight board, and Mayor Warren were there for a Q&A. They answered a couple of questions. They both gave like a short speech and then answered a couple of questions. And then in the middle of one of the questions, someone extremely correctly like started shouting from the crowd, like, hey, how the fuck long have you known about this shit? This has been 6 months, and like he just started yelling, and it was all correct shit. And then immediately after, both Mayor Warren and the guy on the oversight board had said, "I don't run from this kind of stuff," they literally turned around and left the event because they didn't.
You love it.
They didn't.
They have
like
no fucking spines.
They didn't like being yelled at. Also, just a reminder that Rochester voted on a police accountability board. They overwhelmingly voted to bring in a police accountability board earlier this. It was either earlier this year or late last year. I can't remember when the vote was. But so they did that vote, and then in May of this year, the police accountability board was completely stripped of its disciplinary powers.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's always how it goes, right? They get defanged. Basically, usually from the inside. It'll be like the board will appoint a couple of ex-cops, and then they'll vote on their, like, you know, their legislative priorities and the kind of stuff that they're going to be working towards, and all the ex-cops are just like, well, we can't persecute cops, or else cops won't do their jobs. And then they lose their fangs.
Yep. And if it's, you know, today when I woke up and went downstairs, the first thing that my mom said to me was like, "Did you hear that this restaurant downstairs got busted up? Like a table or two was flipped, and a window was broken, I believe." And of note also, the protesters largely stopped this person from, like, stopped these people shortly after they did these things.
Right.
But,
they flipped a table. God, you know what? You know what that means? I think we should triple the police budget and give them like the Spartan laser from Halo 3, so that they can just like light someone up from a far distance with a cool laser.
Yeah, otherwise they're in danger of getting spit on by a naked mentally ill man.
Yeah, God forbid they get a little spit on their uniforms, which they probably don't wash. Now I'm just thinking about the fact that every time there's like a fake cop story about being assaulted by protesters, it's always like protesters like threw pee and poo at the police, and that police are completely obsessed with the concept of getting hit by pee and poo, as if like protesters are regularly filling piss jugs and bringing them to protests because that's like a completely normal and regular thing to do.
Every protester I've ever met has been emulating Norman Reedus and his funky fetus and turning their poop and pee into grenades. Right,
like it's just like, yeah, no, the thing that we'll usually be bringing to protests is like, you know, water and food. We don't have space for the piss bag. We don't have just several bespoke jugs of piss to throw. It takes a long time to fill a full jug of piss.
It really does.
We simply do not have the time. And also it's stinky.
It's stinky.
But it really comes down to just like the fundamental pathology of cops is that they demand to be respected at all time, and the only thing they can imagine as that's the only thing they can imagine is some kind of humiliation. And what's more humiliating than people's bodily fluids being sprayed on you?
I am putting a water balloon over my dick like it's a hose spout and just blasting piss into it to lob at the cops.
No one wants to get piss on their hands either.
Yeah, that's why I put the water balloon around the tip.
Yeah, and then you just swing around and launch.
Yeah, I don't even bother to take it off and tie it.
You don't even have to touch it. You're just doing a good. You're doing like a Darkest Lariat spin. It's a true T-pose.
Oh my god! What's the thing? What's the word for like when you have your pants off and you like gyrate to make your dick do is it helicoptering?
Windmilling.
Windmilling. Thank you. Yes, I'm just windmilling a piss balloon off my cock.
Yeah, until it flies up and hits them.
Girls love it when I windmill a piss balloon off my cock.
At cops specifically.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, girls love it when I do that at cops. Yeah.
Yeah. Girls hate cops. This is just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So is that all for the local angle?
Yeah, that's all I got for.
Let's do a little switcheroo over to that national angle. So, how do you think the Biden campaign is using this historical momentum against the institution of policing?
Poorly.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Is he by any chance getting into a slap fight with Trump over who has most recently said no, he's going to defund the police. No, he's going to defund the police.
Right. So I just have it's a New York Times article. It's amid new wave of polls, Biden and Trump intensify clash on unrest. And it's kind of a misleading headline per the New York Times. Their clash is that they have the same position, and they're both accusing the other of having the other position.
The other cooler position.
Yeah, the position that's actually good and resonates with actual people.
Mm-hmm.
It's really great that the Democrats spend all their energy on, like, upper middle class white people who live in the suburbs, of which there are, like, it's maybe like a solid 5% of the Democratic voter base.
Yeah,
as opposed to the people.
And they also spend all their time berating a local salon for entrapment.
Good Christ. I didn't even, like, have that on my docket for today, but, like, I just want to just go there for just a second.
Yeah.
That Nancy Pelosi went to a salon without a mask on. They had video camera footage of her entering the salon and getting her haircut without a mask on. And then, instead of apologizing to the service workers at this salon, to which she could have just worn a mask. There was nothing stopping her from wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
She decided to say that they should apologize to her, the multimillionaire, that couldn't just, get someone to show up at her house, which is something that she could easily have done. She
also claimed that she had been set up somehow by these salon workers.
Yeah, like, as if, like, they don't just have security cameras like most businesses do.
Right, like, how much of the ivory tower's idea of Democrats is Nancy Pelosi solely responsible for?
Like, so much of it, like, given that she's literally a California senator.
Yeah, God, I fucking hate her. I hope she gets primaried.
Yeah.
Hashtag Shahid for change.
Yeah, it's basically like, you just look at her net worth before she entered Congress, look at her net worth now, and then start sharpening your guillotine. Like, it's really it. She has used her time in Congress almost exclusively to enrich herself. And then make some vague progressive platitudes, most of which aren't actually saying anything, and are just like, like they have the overall effect and tone of a Jay Leno monologue joke.
It's entirely that Kurt Vonnegut quote about
dropping a custard pie off of a ladder at 6 feet.
Yeah, except for that's the power that he was slightly wrong, because that's the power that Democratic politicians have. And
because he was talking about artists.
We funny men have that same power, except that there's like a brick in the pie, so it's a little bit like damaging if you stand under it.
Right. Whereas like the Democrats, their entire machine is dedicated to being elected. I'm gonna use the word us and in regards to this, and like, just to be clear, I cannot vote in this election even if I wanted to. I am Canadian,
tragically,
but there's just a more convenient term of phrase because I do identify with the voting population of the United States on this, and then also just in general, we are the country that is most affected by U.S. policy that isn't the United States itself.
Yeah. Like,
no matter what happens, we can't vote on it, but it sure does affect us.
We love it. We love it's not taxation without representation, but it sure as hell is impaction without representation.
Yeah, more or less. But yeah, so...
Though, I mean, I guess that's nothing new, considering the fact that, like, the people who the countless civilians who died in Iraq probably did not have much of a say in whatever the United States did.
Right. God, we're gonna get to the troops in a second.
Oh yeah, but first, okay, so go back to Joey B.
Yeah, so like they're making the largest ad buy of the campaign so far, like $4 million, literally just to do a full condemnation of looting, which is just, it's literally allowing Trump to set the terms of the debate that they're having, right?
Yep.
Because it's like Trump is saying that the Democrats are encouraging looting and encouraging the destruction of small business and these cities, and rather than reject the terms.
If I see or hear the words small business again within the next fucking 5 years of my life, my head will just pop off of my body.
God.
Like in that episode of Arthur.
Rest in peace to Dog Island, a very good Nova Scotia-based podcast that decided to finally end their podcast directly before the largest piece of Nova Scotia-related news that will ever happen. And they would always just refer to them as small business tyrants. And that is always just, not to get distracted even more, but, if we're talking labor violations, small businesses are doing it so much more than anyone else.
That would not surprise me.
Well, because you can't do a class action against a small business because you don't have enough people.
Yep.
Really, that's it. Because you can't take them to labor court unless you're willing to do it by yourself.
And if you have the means to do it yourself, you would not be working for a small business, most likely.
Exactly. So they're allowing the Republicans to set the terms of this debate, to set the terms of reality, basically, because it's basically like accepting the vision that Trump is setting of cities in chaos, like cities under siege by these foreign actors. And I saw even in Rochester, the cops tried to do the same shit that they did in Minnesota, where they said that like all of the protesters were out-of-towners. They did that in Kenosha too. They're like, all these people are out of town. It's like, okay, but like Kenosha also just, is very close to several of the cities of people that came over. Like, why wouldn't you? That's like me going to a protest in Toronto. I would be technically out-of-towner if I was going to a protest in Toronto, but like,
I mean, hell,
they're all our neighbors. We identify
out-of-towner.
we identify with other people.
Yeah, I am technically an out-of-towner. I live in, like I said, I live in a city that's adjacent to Rochester. It's very close, and it's, to a lot of people, it's basically is Rochester, but it's slightly outside of it. So I am an outside agitator telling Mayor Lovely Warren to shut the fuck up and resign.
Yeah, and it's very... It's so, like, that's the only way that they can set the terms of this is by, like, breaking things down into these little microcosms to set us against them. It's very divide and conquer,
Yeah.
Like, they have to atomize every portion of our life because any point where people are feeling solidarity with each other can't happen. So that's why they push the outside agitator narrative as if we're not, like, we're all in this together. We all have to deal with the same government. We all have to deal with the same cops.
Once we know where we stand, hand in hand, make our dreams come true.
Sure.
It's a High School Musical.
I haven't actually seen any of the High School's musical. I did watch several seasons of Glee.
Well, that's about the same.
Christ. So, yeah, the Democrats.
Fuck
I was just basically just sorry. I said it was a $4 million ad buy. It is a $45 million ad buy.
That's so much fucking money.
So here's Biden in the ad. Rioting is not protesting.
No. Give me your best Biden.
I can't. I just can't do him.
Come on, just toss in like a listen, Jack, and it does the action. The spirit will possess you and take it from there.
Listen here, Jack. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Nah, I can't do him.
It sounded good to me, but...
And those who do it should be prosecuted. Prosecuted! Like, he's running his Law and Order Light campaign that he has always wanted to do.
Honestly, Law and Order Light? I would not even slap the light on there. That is a full-calorie Law and Order campaign.
The reason I'm calling it light, which I definitely stole from the most recent Citations Needed news brief, is because they are not running it as severely as the Republicans are, so they're not going to pull any Law and Order Republicans. That's the thing. They're aiming for these Law and Order moderate Republicans who still care about law and order. But if you're just doing the thing the Republicans are doing, but less so, you're not going to fucking pull any of them over. And this is the lesson that the Democrats fail to learn in every fucking election.
Or just refuse to learn. It's hard to tell if it's a failure at this point or if it's just an intentional, sometimes...
Well, yeah, the thing with the Democrats is that the main thing that they want is to not disrupt their funding. They don't care if they win or lose elections because the party machinery, and often the candidates themselves, are paid enough that they don't have to, worry about their day-to-day lives. Yeah. They just need to make sure the money keeps coming in. And, it's fascinating to me that this is just a known thing. This is something that everyone's just oh yeah, they need to not disrupt their donor funding. And this is just an accepted thing. This is a thing that's allowed to continue. It's that's one of those things that's just really fucking frustrating is that we as a voter base have to care about their party machinery because otherwise the other guys who are worse have to win.
Yeah, do you have to vote, Matt? Do you want...
why should I fucking care about this?
Matt, you personally have to vote. Do you want Trump to win? Come over here and commit voter fraud.
Oh, hey, remember how Donald Trump encouraged his supporters to commit voter fraud? Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
Okay, so he was he was doing a
Donald John President said
Donald John President was doing he was doing a press conference at an airport with the Air Force One in the background, which is now his second discrete violation of the Hatch Act. because he was using Air Force One as imagery
Yep.
for his personal campaign. So that's number 2. The other one was the White House. And he said, so you're going to do this early voting, okay? I want you guys to do all your early voting. And then if your vote isn't yet tabulated, I want you to just go there and vote in person.
Just double up. No one. It's fine. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, just double up. And if the fraud mechanisms are there, like the Democrats say they are, then it's no problem at all. You'll just have committed a federal crime, which is like so great. You really love it. On a counter to that, like I know that our elections work a little differently, but I did work the last Canadian federal election. If someone had voted early or voted by mail and had their vote tabulated, the voter roll that we had for that polling station would expressly have their name crossed off. And if by any case their name wasn't crossed off and they voted a second time, then once the voter rolls were retabulated afterwards, they would see 2 discrete votes and that person would be fined. And it was like, it's pretty foolproof. It's literally just a couple of spreadsheets, and we all know that I'm a real slut for them.
Yeah.
Them being spreadsheets. And so, like, it's such a simple thing. But of course, the United States voting system doesn't make any goddamn sense.
No, not a fucking lick.
Voter rolls are purged all the time for no reason, so you might not even necessarily be on the voter roll for the poll that you're attending. So you go to that poll, they don't know what voter roll you're supposed to be at, because it's based on some kind of arcane magic that sets your polling place. So you won't even, like, there won't be anyone there to be able to check if you voted before, because the system isn't as airtight, which is fucked. This election's going well, as you could tell. We're really having a good time with it. I guess we could talk about one election that did go well.
Sure.
All right, so Massachusetts finally did something good.
Massachusetts finally gave the Kennedys the Kennedys already had their number 1 worst car crash, but now they've got their number 2 most bad car crash.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys, said John F. Kennedy on Clone High before he flipped his car directly before the end of the race. And really, Joe Kennedy III managed to do the exact same thing.
He really did.
He had a double-digit lead in the polls at the start of his campaign last year, and managed to lose by double digits to Ed Markey. And this really brings up something fundamental about why, Democratic strategy is completely fucked. Democratic strategy is based entirely on attracting funding rather than attracting votes.
Yeah,
that's why like the Democrats will be like, well, I raised more money, so obviously I'm the better candidate.
I raised one. Jeffrey Beasy gave me a cool $1 billion and his 1 vote, so that means I win.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why the Bernie Sanders campaign began to focus on that minimum campaign donation, like the average donation amount and the number of individual donors, which was just a really, really good move electorally, if only Bernie Sanders were still in the race in some way. But I digress. Understanding that you need to actually do something that voters want, and that purity politics isn't the be-all, end-all of leftist strategy in electoralism, are the 2 lessons that you would get from this Markey victory, if they actually gave a shit about people actually voting for them. So Ed Markey has, not the greatest record in Congress. He's been in Congress for 100 million years, first in the House, now in the Senate. He voted for the Iraq War. He wasn't in Senate for the crime bill. So he was still in the House at that point. So it wouldn't have been related to the crime bill. I know he had a lot of negative ticks on his record, but yet he did get several major endorsements. Like the Boston Globe endorsed him. He was endorsed by Chuck Schumer, who gets to keep the H in his name this week. We'll see if he keeps to earn it. And also a lot of major political action committees were in favor of his reelection. So he wasn't on a complete warpath against the establishment on this one. One noted exception is Nancy Pelosi endorsed Joe Kennedy in this race, which is extremely funny considering that Nancy Pelosi's position on primarying incumbents And like Joe Kennedy was, of course, saying that he was primarying from the left. This is extremely not true, but that was the energy he was going for.
No, it's wanting someone to face a extreme healthcare charges with a lawyer at their side. That's a leftist principle, Matt. I don't know.
Oh my god, that is possibly one of the funniest tweets of the whole thing. And like Ed Markey, not a leftist by any means. His main claim to fame, as you all probably know, is that he was the co-author of the Green New Deal in the Senate.
Yeah.
So like that is his big thing. His big thing is authoring that, championing that, and continuing to champion that. And that gets voters out. That got people to phone bank for him. That got people to donate for him. That got people to literally walk the streets in a pandemic in support of Ed Markey's candidacy. And he won, like, huge. Like, it was, like, a blowout. And this, just keeping in mind, this is the first time that a Kennedy has lost a congressional election in the state of Massachusetts. And that's, like, of, like, 40 times. Like, through all the Kennedys, through all the levels of government.
King shit, honestly.
Yeah, like...
Okay, did you see that fucking New York Times think piece that's, like, with his law... Or no, it wasn't New York Times. It was, I think it was AP, maybe? But it was like, with his devastating loss, Kennedy has finally freed his family from the generational shackles of politics.
Right, now they can go into, like, just continuing to be the Royals, but from Massachusetts.
He abandoned his House seat because he wanted to move up to the bigger leagues.
Right, he abandoned his House seat, and then, like, nobody was able to coalesce the vote in that House seat, and it was won by someone who was a Republican as recently as 2 years ago.
Great shit.
Yeah, so, like, he, like, lost all his... We've functionally had, like, a negative in progressive representation in in Congress. Because, like, all you can say about Joe Kennedy, he's done some decent votes. I'll give him that. He is not the worst at that. He went around the country to help people, like, fundraise for their Senate campaigns. Remember all this kind of stuff that he's done.
Remember that time that he voted for the proliferation of nuclear weapons, or of nuclear arms by accident?
I do remember that, yes.
That was really funny.
Like, yeah, like, I'm not by under any circumstances, like, handing it to him.
No, of course not. I just needed to append that to
But his record is probably better than an actual Republican.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah, and so, like, Ed Markey staying the same and him losing his seat to an actual Republican is a net negative. And so that is the legacy of Joe Kennedy III. And, yeah, so, like, all of the mainstream outlets who were pushing for him, which are like, none of them are like newspapers or unions or anything like that. They're all just like Politico-esque, like politics only useless liberal blogs, were like, voters got distracted by the shiny object of Ed Markey. And it's like, how is Ed Markey championing legislation that people actually care about because it impacts the entire planet more of a shiny object than someone who's literally a Kennedy the Third? No one with a the Third should be in politics at all.
Political dynasties deserve to die.
Yeah, you should be dead.
Yeah.
If you have your dad's name, that's fine. But if you explicitly use the second or the third, you deserve the guillotine.
Yeah.
Junior, if your parent was in politics,
Junior is fine. The second is not.
Yeah, exactly. I think they usually will use Junior instead of the second anyway.
The Kennedys probably don't.
The Kennedys probably don't. But that said, it's like,
it was really interesting to see.
I'm of the opinion that if your parent was in politics, you just straight up shouldn't be allowed to be in politics.
Yeah.
Like, your grandkid can, but you can't have an unbroken generational line of politics.
It was really interesting to me how like when Kennedy started grasping at straws this past like 2 months, it really just seemed ripped from the Warren-Sanders playbook. Like, They were literally trying to use Bernie's strategy for someone who's never been ahead of the curve on any progressive legislation in his life. That, and also like they tried to invoke the online harassment and the oh my god, like Markey Bros. So much of the reason that Bernie Bros was able to catch on was because they were able to like sell it as a misogyny kind of thing, right? Which Joe Kennedy is not a woman. So he can't, like, he didn't really engender that sympathy from that. Yeah, he couldn't invoke the specter of Marky Mark and his Funky Bros. Yeah, and then we had like all of the people who were all of the failed Democratic candidates coming out in his corner. Like, remember that video of him with who was it? Was it Beto O'Rourke? Yeah, there's one with him with Beto because Joe Kennedy did go.
Joe Kennedy did go campaign for Beto when he was running for Senate.
Yeah. Failed politicians get it in Pontiacs getting pwned, I guess. I don't have a good end point for that joke, so that's what you get.
Yeah, if it was Joe Kennedy getting primary, then that would have worked, but he wasn't. He was trying to primary someone.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, if you're going to be primarying someone, you should at least, like, be on the side of the Justice Dems.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're the only ones with the funding, with the energy to actually get you over the line if you're trying that shit.
Yeah. I remember, like, if you, like, go back to the halcyon days very early on in this podcast, I think that, like, one of us may have said something, like, positive about Joe Kennedy, because it's, like, that's how it always is with these people. Like,
Sarah, if you go into the early days of this podcast, you could find people saying positive things about Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah.
We've all changed.
It's just so interesting to me, because there's always, like, this flash in the pan of, like, oh, hey, this person seems kind of, like, possibly progressive. Like, Joe Kennedy, the first time I heard his name was, like, I don't know, doing some Trump owning shit. And like Beto O'Rourke, the first time I saw him, I was like, damn, that guy seems cool. Same with Pete Buttigieg. And then just like time and time again, the system just, they either reveal themselves to be an establishment Democrat or the system grinds them into one.
Right. Like, I was like, the thing about Pete that always got me is that it's just like his only goal since he was like 10 years old was to become the president. And anyone who's like that is a fucking sociopath.
Pete Buttigieg.
Feet footage edge, absolutely. But yeah, so yeah, and Ed Markey is returning to the Senate because I don't even know if he's not running unopposed, I don't think, is he?
No, I don't think so. I don't know, actually, I shouldn't say.
But I think it's just like, it's ludicrously unlikely if there is a candidate in that race that he's gonna lose it. Yeah. Which, like, God, I was looking at our good friends at 538 to just see like
Nate Bronze.
Yeah, Nate Bronze. Just to see what the temperature was on the Senate in the 2020 election. Uh-huh. And it's like, likely Democrat, 47. Likely Republican, 47. Either way, 6. And I'm like, cool. Fucking thank you. I'm really loving the energy of, there's a distinct possibility that the Democrats could flip the Senate, but it's so it's not likely enough for it to actually be, like, show up in the polling anywhere. It's really cool. You really do love to see it. The thing that I really hope is that, like, if the Senate isn't flipped on this election, that at the very least, like, you know, I genuinely do hope that Joe Biden wins. Like, I fucking hate him and he sucks, but, like, yeah, I hope he wins.
Like, the thing that really
I feel like we shouldn't have to say this.
Yeah.
But we will. I really do just hope that Trump does not win a second term. But what I really hope is that the people pushing energy for primarying candidates that fucking suck ass does not stop, and in fact increases under a Biden presidency, because, you know, they'll face slightly less attacks from the judicial and legislative branches, such that they can actually, you know, focus on getting people who don't suck shit into Congress and not just have to worry about the boogeymen of the Republican full takeover.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, we won't have to worry about Senate seats for a little bit. Like, RBG can just retire, and they can replace her with fucking Merrick Garland, who's absolutely who Biden's gonna push. And we can just, like, focus on getting all of the fucking dinosaurs out of Congress, including and especially Nancy Pelosi. You know what I've been thinking about recently?
What?
How if Ruth Bader Ginsburg were to die in October, Republicans would absolutely get a Supreme Court pick in even before the election.
Yep.
And, like, they could just do that. That's a thing that they're just able to do. They could do it in the lame duck of an election they lost.
Well, they would they'd need a House majority. They would need a House to chip in, right?
I think so, but I'm sure they would just manage it anyway.
Yeah.
The thing about rules is that they've shown the distinct fact that they don't care about them, and that the process itself, which supposedly has checks and balances, does not check and balance people who don't fucking give a shit. And I really just do think that Democrats need to harness that energy and stop being such fucking hall monitor process nerds. And when they actually have power, just start ramming shit through, dude.
Yeah.
Just fucking go for it. All I can say about Justin Trudeau, very little of it is positive, but dude knows how to just force shit through when he needs to. And I don't necessarily like the shit that he's putting through, but he does it.
The thing that really like fucks me up about this election is that like even if Joe Biden wins and the Democrats overturn the House or overturn the Senate and keep the House, like I think I said as much recently in an episode, but like what happens? Like it's just going to be the exact same shit that happened when Obama had full control.
Well, yeah, I genuinely don't expect them to do anything. Basically what happens then is that the organizing machines that have been building and building and building and building, basically, like, consistently since at least Obama's second term, need to not stop. That's one. I've just really been thinking about the one protest sign from, like, a 2017 protest that was, like, if Hillary won, we'd be at brunch.
I'm always thinking about that protest sign.
I'm thinking about that every fucking day of my life. Because that is how a significant portion of people think about things, is if the Democrats win, you can just chill out for a couple of years.
And honestly,
basically, what needs to happen is
I'll concede this about myself. If Hillary had, like,
we wouldn't have fucking started this podcast if Hillary won, dude.
I would have remained like a mildly leftist liberal. Like I would have been like one of the people eating brunch and being like, oh, I don't know what everyone's so upset about. Like Hillary's got some bad stuff, but like.
Yeah, I think I would still, like, because, like, even if Hillary won, I still fucking hated Hillary before that election happened.
Yeah, I did not. I was like I was, like, happy to cast my vote for Hillary. I was like, oh, boy, a lady president. How progressive.
Right, yeah, because, like, I'd been following the primary a lot. Like, I think my leftist turn was somewhere late Obama, probably.
Yeah.
Just because, like, it's really just the hypocrisy of the Democratic establishment that really, really got to me after a while. Like, I didn't vote for Justin Trudeau in his first election in 2015, but when he won, I was like, oh, that's nice. We don't have Stephen Harper anymore. And then, like, by the time his like re-election in 2019, I'm like, I want this man to die.
And now you've got Dig Dug his own grave Ford Knight.
We do have Dig Dug his own grave Ford Knight, brother of Rob Ford, who, like,
rest in pieces, but the pieces are like little bits of cocaine.
Now I'm just thinking I have a friend whose first name is Ford, and he was like trying to think of a name for like his fans/friends, and he tried to use the name Ford Nation. And I'm like, dude, you can't be Ford Nation. That's literally Doug Ford's Twitter handle.
Tell him the Ford Horde.
I will tell him the Ford Horde, because that's fucking sick. I will let Ford know that he can have the Ford Horde. Honestly, I let's just talk about this one as short as possible. Trump said that people who are injured and killed in war are fucking losers. And he's right. Like, at this point, we've kind of got to hand it to him.
The only two things that Trump has ever done correctly is dodge the draft and call military personnel losers.
Right, like, if you were, like, injured going to a war zone to fight literal fascism, so, like, if you're a World War II vet, I'll hand it to you. First of all, you didn't have a choice. And second of all, like, all things said about all the powers involved in that war, they were very much, at some point, fighting fascism. If you are volunteering to join the army to go to Afghanistan when you know that
this
there's
was
nothing...
Vietnam, actually, that he was shit-talking. He was shit-talking, like, volunteer Vietnam soldiers.
Was Vietnam a draft?
I believe Vietnam was a draft.
Okay. How the fuck did they get away with a draft in the 60s and 70s? I mean, I guess the answer is that they kind of didn't, because there was huge anti-war demonstrations around the time. But, like, again, the Kurt Vonnegut quote.
Yeah.
For all the good that did.
But anyways, anyone who has ever died for their country is a clown.
And, so like, this specifically came back to, like, John McCain.
As all things do, apparently. We
remember when John McCain...
have, as a country, become Meghan McCain.
My father. Remember when John McCain crashed, like, his third plane in Vietnam? He was on his way to bomb a light bulb factory, which is a explicit war crime under the Geneva Convention.
We love it.
And the only reason that he was able to survive as a prisoner of war is because his dad was a famous general, and so he was someone that could be, like, you know, held for proper ransom. Yeah. You really do love it. And so, like, a lot of people coming out of the woodwork to be like, if he can't lead our troops, and if he can't respect our troops, then he is not fit for office. And it's like, man, a lot of the people becoming troops think the exact same way about wounded soldiers. Because you'll find that people who come back from wars wounded or, you know, dead, like, the ones who come back wounded or in, like, some way emotionally or mentally damaged by the experience often end up anti-war.
Yeah.
You really don't get that many veterans that'll come back and be like, I did this for our country and I believe in these ideals. What they see is that they went at what they thought was for their country, got injured, got back to the United States, and then just got thrown in the fucking garbage. Because it's not like Veterans Affairs are particularly kind to people who come back injured. It is always like jumping through hoops to get any of their medication. Yep. And like, they'll basically admit this. They're like, I thought I was fighting for something noble. I was fucking duped.
The military did trickery. The
military tricks them. It's essentially, it's a fucking grift. That's why college has to remain expensive. That is one of the recruiting tools. That is why the U.S. Army has to be allowed on Twitch.
And also on fucking GameSpot. And
on GameSpot, and also have like fucking Raytheon ads in Electronic Gamer Monthly.
Yep.
Electronic Gamer Monthly. We have our ads for Raytheon. It'll be just like Iron Man. You want to be like Iron Man? Come join Raytheon.
You want to be like Iron Man and be an arms manufacturer?
You really do love it. Like, they just really missed the point of, like, even within the canon, he was slightly more uncomfortable with being an arms manufacturer, but then he decided to make a panopticon of armed drones, and then leave them to a child. Yep. We really do love the canon of the Marvel Universe and how much the CIA loves them. People will talk about, like, the CIA falling out over Captain America Civil War, which is like, what if the panopticon was bad? But then it was like, the fucking Air Force making Captain Marvel functionally. You love it. So anyway, under this circumstance, you kind of have to hand it to Trump because he was right.
Yeah. He.
The other thing I had on the docket was the guy who got who killed a Trump supporter from Patriot Prayer. I feel like we've run long enough that I cannot give this what it needs. And also,
honestly, Matt, fucking go for it. These episodes used to be an hour and a half long. Just run your shit.
I mean, the other part is just that, like, new shit is coming every day with this case. It is very much in flux. But I want to give the long and short of it. So I'm just gonna read part of a tweet. He was considered security for the Portland Protest Bureau, and that group is like, they're the kind of people who show up at protests and then try to start leading their own chants.
It abbreviates to PPB, which is pig poop balls.
It does abbreviate to pig poop balls. And so, like, this person, it's Proud Bulba on Twitter, which is a thread that Carolyn linked. Carolyn was actually talking to me about this in DMs, because we're like, we don't want to get all, like, eyeball emoji about this in, like, the public politics channel on HKIT. But could be seen as a little disrespectful, but at the same time, every new thing that has come out about this case has been extremely at Septipus huge emoji eyeball.
Yeah.
So,
even if this guy did just go out and kill a Trump supporter, a Patriot Prayer guy in cold blood, like, what happened to him was just an extrajudicial police killing. Right.
But then also, this guy worked security for the kind of people who would take over protests and would also assault other protesters who were who were basically trying to either de-escalate or bring the protest a different way. He has, like, physically threatened other protesters. If those protesters even know who he is, it is in the context of being bullied, yelled at, or assaulted by this man. This man's Instagram feed is absolutely apolitical until maybe a month and a half ago. And then if you start looking at his, like, the record of him that was pushed through, it's like, this guy got booked for drag racing his 17-year-old son, and then getting pulled over and having a bag full of pills in his car. The kind of shit that this guy has gotten away with in the last month, like, and not been arrested for, is, like, absolutely bonkers. It is absolutely bonkers. And again, I am not suggesting that these are reasons that this man should have been extrajudicially killed. But it is very particular that this man is being used as, like, a face of Antifa by people who are trying to, have Antifa labeled as domestic terrorists.
Yep.
And it really just brings me to the Portapique shootings in Nova Scotia, in that, like, this guy just seems to have a suspicious amount of leeway with cops, and also a suspicious amount of money very recently before he goes and shoots someone.
Just some very big eyes emojis happening.
Right, so, like, this guy really just seems like he's a Fed.
Yeah.
This is pure speculation, but it is not entirely baseless. At the same time, it's like, so many protesters have been maimed by cars repeatedly. We've had so many Heather Hairs since Heather Hair have been shot by cops, have been shot by fucking Kyle Rittenhouse, which I don't believe I don't think we've covered that on the pod. I think it happened after last episode.
Yeah, we have not talked about Kyle Rittenhouse, that fucking nightmare.
Well, so I don't want to talk about him more, but like, at the very least, Black Lives Matter protesters, anti-police protesters have been assaulted by the state and by other citizens and by like unmarked police forces consistently and thoroughly throughout this entire cycle. When I heard that a Trump guy finally got it,
yeah, I
was like, cool. That's basically it. You can fucking quote me on that.
Yeah.
I really truly don't give a shit about, like, it's fucking Patriot Prayer too. Like, Patriot Prayer, like, remember when there was the two guys who got fucking stabbed and killed on the Portland rail line because they were defending two black Muslim women from attacks from a guy on the train?
I do remember that.
Yeah, the guy who stabbed them was a Patriot Prayer weirdo. Like, these guys
Patriot Prayer got a fucking, like, a completely astroturf, like, coverage by, was it CNN referring to them as, like,
they call them a Christian faith-based group.
A Christian faith-based group, yes.
They are literally just street fighters.
Oh, okay. I think we should go into Lightbringers now before we go.
Right, I just want to say, like, just before we go into that, their entire thing is literally just to start shit. So, yeah. One of them talked shit and then got hit. I don't give a shit.
So, Matt, what's your Lightbringer this week?
God, thinking of things.
I can go first if you need a minute to second. If you need
No, I got one.
Hit it.
My friend group, we basically had like a consistent group chat going since I want to say like 2008.
Wow.
So it was like on Skype, and it's been on Discord since like before the election, like shortly before the Trump election. We've been on we've had a Discord channel going, and we've always like kind of hung out with each other. We used to like hang out on like Tiny Chat sometimes, just hang out on webcam. But what we've been doing for the last 3 weeks is doing PowerPoint nights.
I've seen some screenshots from that. That seems fun.
Okay, if you have friends that are funny and also are able to, you know, just be creative on a dime and just, you know, make some dumb shit and just makes like some kind of argument. Like sometimes people will do these kind of arguments in like the form of like a Twitter thread or something, right? Or like that one Tumblr post where me and Brooks are arguing back and forth about Air Bud. If you have a group of friends who you think is funny, just have a fucking PowerPoint night. You could do it on Google Meets. You could do it on Discord. You just share the screen. Everything is funnier in a PowerPoint format. Some PowerPoints that have come up. Stephanie did one this week that was why several shows should have a time travel season. The argument as to why the Americans should have a time travel season is so that they can go back and make sure that the Reagan assassination happens for real.
Yeah, that's a real downer in the first season of the show that Reagan gets shot but lives. And I know it's like historical fiction, but also
like, come on, we couldn't have just given us that one W. We just needed one W.
Just one.
Just one W. Colin did one where he explained what kind of garden he wants to have and even made like a full to scale model of his garden using Microsoft Excel.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
And also did 100 facts about potatoes, although he stopped roughly in the 30s. And then, of course, might be one of my favorite ones so far, Jay did a deep dive analysis of the song Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah, it's very good. And they've basically just been like the highlight of my Friday nights. It's something to do every Friday. I'm not working. I'm home. It's an excuse to drink. It's why I don't have a beer for the podcast today.
You got too tipsy on PowerPoints.
I got too tipsy on PowerPoints. And yeah, so if you're looking for like a new and interesting way to hang out with your friends that's not just like watching a movie or playing Jackbox, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. My recommendation this week is going to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. It came out 2 days ago. 1 day ago, actually. The official release date was yesterday at time of recording. And I have played so fucking much of it. I have a really hard time putting it down when I'm playing it because it just feels so fucking good to play. I love it. It is everything I really could have wanted out of this game. I restrained myself from getting my hopes up about this game until basically 2 days before it came out because I was waiting for that Jeff Gerstmann seal of approval because he's the only man I trust.
And he gave it 9 out of 10, right?
I don't think he gave it an actual like numbered score. Giant Bomb doesn't do
right.
Giant Bomb does on a 5-point scale anyways, not a 10-pointer. But he was like, yeah, it's very fucking good. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm buying this, and it has lived up to everything that I've wanted.
Right. So, it was like so many of the things about about the way this game was made, were like really just like the platonic ideal of how things should work when you're doing like a remaster re-release of something.
Right.
So like they were
every
working
song
fully
from
with
the original game.
Yeah, every skater. They rescanned them and put them in as their current age, which I love.
They have actually they added 8 new skaters for the new guard, and there are actually less than 50% men in the lineup.
Sick.
There's 4 women and Leo Baker, who is non-binary, which fucking whips. Tony Hawk said trans rights.
Right. I like that it was made with a lot of the original Neversoft development team. Like they got as many of them as they could, which is amazing considering Neversoft has not existed for years.
Yep. They've been Neversoft, never to be seen again.
Right, and it's like, I wish more things could work like that with game development, but basically what happens is, a studio makes a game like Tony Hawk, they get bought by Activision or EA, and then they cease to exist.
Yep. So I hope you're excited for the Mass Effect trilogy re-release that comes out with absolutely no one who actually worked on the original games.
Oh, you fucking love it.
Input.
But yeah, no, I've been really excited to just watch people play it, because that's my main experience with Tony Hawk was watching my brother play it. So if you happen to stream it anywhere, like, a half an hour from now, I will probably be watching you play it.
Poggers. I might stream. I don't know. I have to do some homework today also, but I also really want to play some Tony Hawk.
Yeah, I just... I was never very good at it is the thing. So
yeah.
it's definitely something I just have to watch people play.
Okay, so thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Henry Kissinger's Pokemon Going to Die, Not a Threat, Just a Fact. If you want to find us, we are HKIPGTD everywhere. That is us on Twitter, Facebook. Don't fucking use Facebook, but that's us on Facebook. That's us on Tumblr. That's us on...
Don't use Tumblr either. Honestly, don't use Twitter either. Don't use any of these platforms.
Don't go to Reddit, but thank you to Reddit user Bisexual Punch Party for maintaining the subreddit. We love you so much. And also Patreon. Patreon.com/HKIPGTD is where you can go to support this podcast. $1 a month gets you I was about to say early access to the episodes. We don't do that because we don't have a set release time.
Right.
We just kind of put them up when they're done. We do any bonus content that we've done in the past or we'll do in the future, like pre-shows, post-shows, sometimes bonus, sometimes like extra cut for times or extra extended Lightbringers. Those will go up there. And $5 a month gets your name right on the podcast, and $10 and a special user status in the Discord. $10 gets you all that, plus an even more special user status in the Discord, and you can listen live like we have someone doing right now. So thank you very much to Cass, Shindiglet, Antigone Progeny, Endian Snuffkin, Your Sapphic Minecraft aka ACAB Wife, Patrick Van Brunt, Alex H, Wynn, Jacob Sears, Bryce, Stefan Death in the Grips, Neve Noel Williams, Maximilian Rohr, Boigameister, Bryant, Nick Clarkson, Destry Hawk, Tufter McGee, Alex Hoot, Jane Wick, Summer Geist, Dijonais, Pregnant Seinfeld, David Besser, Paul Blart Fleshcart, Scout Shiro, The Tallest Jew, Stephanie Ruff, and Alex Schaup. If you want to find me, thank you very much to Matt GameCube, that's you,
that's me.
And the Noisepace.xyz network that he cultivates. That's where this and so many other great podcasts can be found. I think I've recommended 0 to 0 in a past episode, but I'm going to recommend it again because it's a good fucking podcast.
I'm going to recommend the newest episode of The Wonder Yerks, which was recorded pre-corona, and it's a very weird time capsule into the past.
Yeah, I should listen to that to see where my life was 6 months ago. Like, I hadn't been fired 6 months ago.
Oh, man. It's going to be such a different vibe from this one to the next one.
Yeah. And, like, Blair has been on testosterone for, like, the 6th intervening month, so his voice is down, like, 3 octaves.
Fuck yes.
The Wonder Yerks is a podcast that I do with my friends Blair and Seda. We're finally getting back to doing the episodes. We got a recording coming up this Monday. And also Fear Baiting, which is a horror movie podcast that I do. Schlocktober is right around the corner, so get your asses in gear for bad horror movies. Oh right, I'm going to be on one of those. You are. Fuck yeah. Thank you to the taxpayers for the use of their intro music, Evil Men off the album Cold Hearted Town. I almost just defaulted into Long Winters Putting the Days to Bed. Sometimes if you start the phrase the same way, then that's what's going to happen. Yeah. If you want to find me elsewhere, I'm on Twitter at SunhatZhenya, SunhatZhenya, and those other 2 podcasts that I mentioned. Matt, plug your shit. Let's get out of here. My name's Matt. You can find me on Twitter at MattGCN. You can find me sometimes on Tumblr at Trimampoline. I'm mostly just reblogging animal videos there. I have several podcasts on the Noise Space Network that I update sometimes. I think the only one that's really kind of active right now, other than this one, is Tuning Fork, which is the music podcast I do with my friend David, talking about pretty much the stuff that we liked when we were in our late teens and early 20s. That being like the Pitchfork heyday of like 2007 to 2012.
And the most recent episode has Stephanie on it, and we talked about Weezer.
Hell yeah.
Because we were talking about things...
Ooh-wee-oo.
Ooh-wee-oo. Yeah, and we also talk about albums that were lauded by Pitchfork and also albums that they hated, and Make Believe happened to get like a 0.4 from Pitchfork, so... and then, Elite Full Restore, I think, is still like a good podcast to listen to if you're starting at like the episodes like 12 and onwards, because all the other ones are like specifically related to recent news in Pokemon before I decided that was a format that I don't like. And then it kind of goes into like a more interviewee, just like shooting the shit kind of format after that. So like I haven't recorded an episode of Elite Full Restore in a couple months, but like the ones that are there are still kind of decent to listen to. I haven't done a Giants Confirmed in a while, but I need to just go yell at Trevor and then just do that. We'll get around to it.
All right. So until that's fear baiting. Thanks for listening, folks. This has been Henry Kissinger's Pokemon Going to Die, not a threat, just a fact. And remember, memento Pokemori.
Remember that you too will Pokemon die.
Semper funny, everyone.
Semper funny.
I am gonna Joe Biden. Gonna him with my. I got it from Walmart yesterday, and I found his address in
Minecraft.